What if I told you there was a man who survived not one, not two, but 25 insane, life-threatening disasters? Today we're diving into the unbelievable story of Michael Bernard Bell, an engineer staged as Michael Andre Bell, a man whose life seems more like a Hollywood movie than reality. His journey starts in the late 1920s in Louisiana, when as a 9-year-old boy, he walked away from his first disaster. And from that moment on, it was like he had a real-life cheat code for survival. We're talking plane crashes, atomic bombs, shark attacks. You name it, he probably survived it. This is a story that will blow your mind. But this story isn't just about impossible luck. It's also a story of heartbreaking loss. By his side through the early disasters was his younger sister, Sarah. Tragically, her luck ran out during the 6th atomic bomb strike, a devastating event that Michael somehow survived. How could one person endure so much chaos and tragedy and keep going? It's a question that makes his story even more compelling. We are going to walk through every single one of these 25 insane events and try to understand how one person could be this lucky, or maybe this unlucky. Michael Bell's life is one of the most extreme stories of human resilience I have ever heard. It's a powerful testament to the sheer unpredictability of life and the strength of the human spirit. From surviving impossible odds to experiencing profound loss, his story pushes the boundaries of belief. So, subscribe because you are not going to want to miss a single second of this insane journey. We are going to break down every single one of his 25 survivals starting right now. It all started in 1928. Michael, just 9 years old, and his sister Sarah, who was 6, were on a passenger train with their family, chugging alongside a wide, muddy river in Louisiana. Imagine the excitement, the sounds of the locomotive, the world blurring past your window. But then, in an instant, everything turned to chaos. A loud screech of metal, a violent jolt, and the train car they were in suddenly lurched off the tracks. It plunged sideways, crashing down into the cold, dark water below. It was a terrifying scene of twisted metal and rising water. Panic erupted as the car filled with water. People were screaming, scrambling to get out. But amidst the horror, something incredible happened. Michael was thrown clear from the wreckage, landing in a pocket of the river, away from the main impact. He surfaced, gasping for air, with only a few scratches and a deep sense of shock. His sister Sarah, however, wasn't as fortunate. She was trapped inside for several terrifying minutes before being rescued, suffering severe internal injuries and a broken leg. This was the first test of Michael's impossible luck, but it came at a heavy cost to his family. Just 3 days after the train crash, the family decided to take their first ever flight, hoping to leave the trauma behind them. They boarded a small propeller plane, a marvel of modern technology for the time, but fate had another twisted plan. High above the clouds, one of the engines sputtered, coughed black smoke, and died. The plane began a terrifying, uncontrolled spiral towards the earth. The cabin was filled with the sounds of the wind screaming past and the final prayers of the 189 passengers on board. It was a death dive and there was no way out. The plane disintegrated on impact in a fiery explosion, leaving no survivors, except one. In a 1 in a billion chance, the section of the fuselage Michael was in was torn away during the descent. He was thrown from the wreckage, still strapped to his seat, and plummeted towards the ground. But instead of meeting a certain end, he landed directly in the middle of a massive, freshly piled haystack a farmer had just made. He was knocked unconscious, but survived with just a concussion. Back in the hospital, his sister Sarah's condition, already fragile from the train crash, took a turn for the worse due to the immense stress and shock of losing her parents. Now orphans, Michael and Sarah were being transported by social services to live with a distant relative. You would think they'd be put on the safest form of transport possible, but they were placed on a cross-country bus. The journey was long and somber. Michael sat quietly, watching the landscape roll by, his mind still reeling from losing his parents and seeing his sister so frail. The bus was old, rattling along a winding mountain road on a rainy afternoon. The driver was going too fast for the wet conditions, a recipe for yet another disaster. Suddenly the driver lost control on a sharp curve. The bus skidded, its tires screeching uselessly on the slick asphalt. It slammed hard into the rocky mountainside, the impact throwing passengers from their seats like ragdolls. Glass shattered, metal groaned, and screams once again filled the air. Michael was thrown into the padded seat in front of him, getting the wind knocked out of him, but miraculously avoiding any serious injury. He was bruised and shaken, but alive and conscious. He immediately looked for Sarah, who had been thrown to the floor and had re-injured her already weak leg. For the third time, Michael had walked away from a wreck while his sister suffered. After the bus crash, their new guardians decided to drive them the rest of the way. They were in a brand new Ford Model A, which, felt like a symbol of hope for a fresh start. They pulled into a gas station to refuel for the last leg of their journey. Michael was told to stay in the car while his new guardian paid the attendant. He sat in the back seat, just looking out the window, when he noticed this strange smell, like gasoline but much stronger. He saw a small puddle forming under the car and felt this weird sense of dread. He didn't know why, but honestly an instinct screamed at him to get out. He opened the door and ran a few feet away from the car, turning back to see what was happening. And right at that exact moment, a spark from the gas pump ignited the leaking fuel line. The car erupted in a massive fireball, sending a shockwave that knocked Michael off his feet. The explosion was so powerful it shattered the windows of the gas station. He lay on the pavement, his ears ringing, watching the car he was in just seconds ago become a twisted, burning inferno. His guardian was killed instantly. Michael, again, was completely unharmed. By now, Michael's life was, a string of tragedies, and he and Sarah were placed in an orphanage. It was a bleak, sterile environment, but, they had each other. One evening, a wealthy donor gifted the orphanage some modern novelties to cheer the children up, including a few early, very primitive lava lamps for the common room. The kids were fascinated by these strange, bubbling contraptions. Michael was sitting on the floor nearby, reading a book, while other children gathered around to watch the hypnotic blobs of wax rise and fall. Sarah was resting in the infirmary, still recovering. No one knew that this particular lamp had a major manufacturing defect. The heat source was unregulated, causing immense pressure to build up inside the glass vessel. Without any warning, the lamp exploded like a grenade. It sent shards of superheated glass and scalding hot wax flying across the room. One boy lost an eye, and several others received serious burns. Michael, who was sitting just a few feet away, was shielded by the thick book he was holding up to read. The book was shredded, but he was untouched, saved by his love for reading. It was a bizarre, almost comical accident if it weren't for the serious injuries it caused. This is where Michael's story, honestly, takes a turn from unbelievable to utterly impossible. As he grew, he was 11, and in 1930 he somehow found himself in the vicinity of not one but 16 separate atomic bomb strikes. This part of his life is, shrouded in mystery and classified documents, but the legend says he was involved in some kind of top-secret government program as a human test subject, or maybe just an incredibly unlucky observer. The first 5 detonations he witnessed, from desert tests to remote island sites, left him with only minor radiation burns and temporary blindness. Each time he'd be at the edge of the blast zone, miraculously shielded by a lead-lined bunker or a deep ravine at the perfect moment. But the 6th strike was different. It was the one that broke his impossible luck. Sarah, 8, who had lived a life of constant pain and recovery, was with him at a supposedly safe observation post miles away. A terrible miscalculation in the bomb's yield resulted in a blast wave far more powerful than anyone anticipated. The shelter was compromised, and a wave of intense radiation washed over them. Michael, once again, was shielded by a fluke, a falling piece of concrete that pinned him down and covered most of his body. But Sarah was fully exposed. She died a few days later from acute radiation poisoning. Michael survived the 6th strike and 10 more after that, but he lost the one person he had tried so hard to protect. After the horrors of the atomic tests, Michael tried to live a normal life. He got a job as a handyman, just, trying to find peace in simple manual labor. One day, he was called to fix some wiring in an old, dilapidated building. The place was a fire hazard with ancient, cloth-covered wires just snaking through the walls. He was working in the attic, carefully trying to replace a faulty junction box. He had shut off what he thought was the main breaker. But honestly, the building's wiring was a chaotic mess with multiple unmarked circuits. As he reached out to snip a wire, his metal pliers made contact with a live circuit carrying thousands of volts of electricity. The current surged through his body, throwing him violently across the attic. His body convulsed as the electricity coursed through him, stopping his heart. For all intents and purposes, he was dead. But as he was thrown back, his body slammed into a large metal water pipe, which grounded him and broke the circuit. A co-worker found him moments later, unconscious and not breathing. Miraculously, a single, perfectly timed CPR compression from the co-worker restarted his heart. He woke up with severe burns on his hands, but was otherwise alive. Michael decided city life was just too dangerous and moved to a quiet, rural town in the Midwest, hoping to escape his curse. He bought a small farmhouse and took up farming. For a while, it seemed like he had finally found peace. But he had moved to the heart of Tornado Alley. One spring afternoon, the sky turned a sickening shade of green. The tornado sirens began to wail across the county. Michael looked out his window and saw it, a monstrous churning funnel cloud descending from the sky, heading straight for his farm. There was no time to get to a shelter. He did the only thing he could think of. He dove into the empty, cast-iron bathtub in his bathroom, pulling a heavy mattress over the top of him. He listened as the world outside was torn apart. The sound was deafening, a constant roar like a freight train right next to his ear. The house disintegrated around him, boards snapping, glass shattering. When the silence finally returned, he pushed the mattress off. The entire house was gone. Everything was obliterated. All that remained was the bathtub, sitting in the middle of a field of debris, with Michael inside, completely unharmed. Fleeing the Midwest, Michael moved west to California, seeking the calm of the coast. He took a job as a fire lookout in a remote national forest, ironically choosing a profession dedicated to spotting disasters. He spent his days in a tall tower, surrounded by miles of serene green forest. It was a solitary life, but a peaceful one. However, after a long, dry summer, the forest was a tinderbox. A single lightning strike from a dry storm started a small fire miles away. Fueled by strong winds, the small fire exploded into a raging inferno, moving faster than anyone could have predicted. The firestorm raced towards his tower, cutting off his only escape route. Flames licked at the base of the tower as smoke filled the air, making it impossible to breathe. With no other option, Michael climbed out onto the tower's small balcony, preparing for the end. Just as the fire was about to engulf the tower, he spotted a small, rocky clearing with a tiny pond in the middle. Taking the ultimate risk, he leapt from the tower, aiming for the water. He landed with a painful splash, the heat of the fire scorching his back as he fell. The tower collapsed into the inferno behind him as he submerged himself in the cool water, surviving yet again. After the wildfire, Michael became a bit of a nomad, never staying in one place for too long. He was driving his truck across a massive suspension bridge during his travels, one of the great engineering marvels of its time. It was a windy day, and the bridge was swaying more than usual. Suddenly he heard a sound like a gunshot. One of the main suspension cables had snapped, then another and another. A horrifying, cascading failure began. The roadway in front of him started to buckle and twist. Cars were sliding off the collapsing sections of the bridge into the bay hundreds of feet below. Michael was trapped. His truck was on a section of the bridge that was tilting at a dangerous angle. Thinking fast, he slammed his truck into reverse, flooring it. He drove backward as the bridge disintegrated behind him, pieces of asphalt and steel falling away into the abyss. He made it back to the stable land-based section of the bridge just as the entire middle span tore loose and plunged into the water. He sat in his truck, heart pounding, having outrun a collapsing bridge. You'd think Michael would stay away from water after the train crash and the bridge collapse, but He took a job on a commercial fishing boat to earn some money. He was out at sea with a small crew miles from shore when a sudden, violent squall hit. The storm was not in the forecast, and it turned the calm ocean into a churning nightmare of massive waves. The small boat was tossed around like a toy, taking on water faster than the pumps could handle it. A rogue wave, a wall of water the size of a building, crashed over the boat, capsizing it in an instant. Michael and the crew were thrown into the freezing, violent ocean. In the chaos, he managed to grab onto a floating ice chest that had been thrown from the galley. The other crew members were nowhere to be seen, lost to the storm. For hours, Michael clung to that ice chest, battered by waves and suffering from hypothermia. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, the storm broke, and the beam of a searchlight from a Coast Guard helicopter cut through the darkness, spotting the lone survivor in the vast, empty ocean. Back on dry land, Michael rented a room in a cheap boarding house, just trying to lay low. The building was old and poorly maintained, a recurring theme in his life. One night, he was jolted awake by the smell of smoke and the sound of a smoke alarm blaring down the hall. A fire had started in the kitchen downstairs due to a faulty stove and was spreading rapidly through the old wooden structure. His room was on the 3rd floor, and the hallway was already an impassable wall of black smoke and intense heat. His window was the only way out, but the drop was easily 40 feet to the hard pavement below. Below his window, however, was a large, thick tree with branches that reached up towards the house. With the fire starting to burn through his door, Michael smashed the window, climbed out, and began to carefully make his way down the tree, branch by branch, like a squirrel. He was halfway down when the roof of the house collapsed in a shower of sparks and embers. He made it to the ground just as the entire building was engulfed in flames. Another home and all his possessions turned to ash. Chapter 13. Disaster number 28, struck by lightning. Michael took up golfing, of all things. Maybe he thought it was the safest possible hobby. He was on the 18th hole of a golf course one afternoon when the weather took a sudden turn. Dark clouds rolled in and he heard the distant rumble of thunder. Most people would head for the clubhouse, but Michael, perhaps a bit arrogant about his own survival skills by now, decided to finish his game. He stood on the fairway lining up his final putt, holding a metal putter in his hand. That's when it happened. A massive bolt of lightning forked down from the sky, striking the metal club in his hand. The electricity shot through his body, and witnesses said he was lifted off the ground as every muscle in his body contracted. The bolt exited through his feet, leaving smoking holes in his shoes and the grass around him. He should have been killed instantly, but for some reason the charge, while immense, didn't stop his heart. He was left with Lichtenberg figures, fern-like burns all over his body, and a newfound respect for thunderstorms. Paramedics were shocked to find him conscious and complaining about missing his putt. Chapter 14. Disaster number 29. The Skydiving Incident. In a bout of what can only be described as tempting fate, Michael decided to go skydiving. He wanted to face his fear of falling head-on. He went up in the plane with an instructor for a tandem jump. The view was incredible, and the initial jump went smoothly. They were free-falling for a minute, the wind roaring in their ears. The instructor pulled the cord for the main parachute, but nothing happened. It was a malfunction. He tried again. Still nothing. The instructor, now panicking, went for the reserve chute. He pulled the cord and the reserve deployed, but it got tangled in the malfunctioning main parachute. Instead of opening fully, it just flapped uselessly, barely slowing their descent. They were plummeting to the earth with a tangled mess of nylon above them. Just before impact, they happened to be passing over a large swampy marsh. They crashed into the deep, soft mud and water, which cushioned their landing just enough to save their lives. They both suffered multiple broken bones, but they survived a fall that should have been fatal. Michael had now survived falling from the sky twice. Chapter 15. Disaster number 30. Venomous snake bite. After recovering from his skydiving injuries, Michael took a job as a park ranger in the Florida Everglades, another questionable career choice for a man with his history. He was leading a small group of tourists on a walking tour through the dense wetlands. He was pointing out some native plant life when he stepped directly on a highly venomous eastern diamondback rattlesnake that was camouflaged in the undergrowth. The snake reacted instantly, sinking its fangs deep into Michael's calf. The tourist screamed as Michael calmly looked down at the bite. He knew he only had a few minutes before the potent hemotoxic venom would start to shut down his body. He told everyone to stay back, took out his pocket knife, and this is insane. He performed a crude venom extraction on himself, cutting into the wound and sucking out as much venom as he could. Then, using his belt as a tourniquet, he began the long, agonizing walk back to the ranger station. He collapsed at the door but was given anti-venom just in the nick of time. Doctors said if he had arrived 5 minutes later, he would have died. Michael clearly had a death wish. After Florida, he moved to Colorado and became a ski instructor. He was an expert skier and just loved the thrill of the mountains. So one day, he was leading an advanced class on a backcountry tour, exploring, ungroomed off-piste terrain. Even though he checked the avalanche forecast, which was moderate, a combination of recent snowfall and wind had created this dangerously unstable slab of snow high above them. As they traversed a steep bowl, a massive crack suddenly shot across the snowpack above. The entire mountainside seemed to fracture and give way. There was this thunderous roar as a massive avalanche of snow, ice and rock came thundering down toward them. The other skiers were instantly buried and swept away. Michael, reacting in a split second, pointed his skis straight downhill, trying to outrun the slide. He was eventually caught by the edge of the avalanche, but because of his speed, he wasn't buried deep. He was tumbled and tossed, but managed to sort of swim with the current of snow, keeping himself near the surface. When the snow finally settled, his hand was sticking out, and he was able to dig himself out, the sole survivor once again. Michael moved to San Francisco because of course he did. He was working as a cook in a restaurant on the top floor of a high-rise hotel. It was the dinner rush, and the kitchen was just a whirlwind of activity. Without any warning, the building began to shake violently. It was the big one that Californians always feared, a massive earthquake. The shaking was so intense that the entire building swayed back and forth like a tree in the wind. Pots and pans flew off their hooks, ovens toppled over, and the ceiling started to crumble. The staff and diners were screaming, diving under tables. The building structure groaned and twisted. Michael was thrown against a wall, but as he looked up, he saw a massive industrial-sized refrigerator slowly tipping over, right where he had just been standing. It crashed to the ground, crushing the prep station he had just been thrown from. The shaking stopped after a terrifying minute. The building was severely damaged, but somehow still standing. Michael had been saved by the very force that was trying to kill him. Apparently, Michael was a fan of the Pacific Ring of Fire. His next adventure took him to Washington State near the beautiful but active volcano, Mount St. Helens. He was working as a geologist's assistant, taking seismic readings on the mountain. Scientists knew the volcano was bulging and active, but no one knew exactly when it would blow. On the morning of May 18, 1980, Michael was in a helicopter flying near the summit to check on some equipment. Suddenly, the entire north face of the mountain gave way in a massive landslide, uncorking the volcano. It erupted sideways in a colossal explosion of rock, ash and superheated gas that moved at hundreds of miles per hour. The helicopter he was in was thrown through the air by the shockwave. The pilot fought for control as the sky turned black with ash. The engine choked on the volcanic dust and died. The helicopter auto-rotated downwards, crashing into a forest miles away. The pilot was killed on impact, but Michael in the back was cushioned by their scientific equipment and survived the crash with, you guessed it, only minor injuries. He then had to walk for 2 days through a grey, ash-covered wasteland to find help. Chapter 19, Disaster Number 34, The Shark Attack. For a change of pace, Michael decided to go on vacation to Australia. He was learning to surf at a popular beach known for its great waves. While paddling on his board, waiting for a set, he suddenly felt a powerful bump from below. Knocked off his board into the water, he surfaced to see the terrifying dorsal fin of a massive great white shark circling him. The shark had mistaken his surfboard for a seal. It went in for an attack, its jaws wide open, lined with rows of serrated teeth. Michael, with no time to think, did the only thing he could. As the shark lunged, he punched it as hard as he could directly on its sensitive nose. The shark, stunned and surprised by the resistance, thrashed its head and swam away, leaving Michael bleeding in the water from a deep gash on his arm where a tooth had grazed him. Frantically, he swam back to his board and paddled to shore, collapsing on the sand as lifeguards rushed to his aid. He had literally punched a great white shark in the face and won. Chapter 20. Disaster number 35, the Meteor Strike. This might be the most absurd survival of them all. Michael was camping by himself in the remote Arizona desert, far from any city lights, enjoying the incredible view of the night sky. Lying on his back, watching a meteor shower, he saw one particularly bright meteor streak across the sky. But this one wasn't burning up. It was getting bigger and bigger, and it seemed to be heading right for him. With a deafening sonic boom, the basketball-sized meteorite crashed into the earth not 20 feet from where he was lying. The impact threw him several feet and showered him with dirt and red-hot rock fragments, giving him several small burns. A chunk of superheated rock the size of a fist flew past his head, missing him by inches and embedding itself in a cactus. He was temporarily deafened by the explosion, but otherwise fine. He had survived a direct extraterrestrial attack. Chapter 21. Disaster number 36. The Shipwreck. Michael signed on to work as a deckhand on a massive cargo ship crossing the Pacific Ocean. He figured being on a vessel the size of a skyscraper would be safe. He was wrong. In the middle of the ocean, thousands of miles from land, the ship was caught in a typhoon, a storm with winds so powerful they created waves over 100 feet high. The colossal ship, which seemed invincible, was strained to its breaking point. In the middle of the night, Michael was awoken by a horrifying sound of groaning, tearing metal. The ship's hull had been breached and it was sinking fast. An alarm blared as the order was given to abandon ship. In the chaos and darkness, Michael was washed overboard by a massive wave before he could even get to a lifeboat. He surfaced in the churning sea and saw the massive ship slip beneath the waves. He thought he was done for, but he spotted a lone, empty life raft that had been shaken loose. He managed to climb aboard, adrift and alone in the world's largest ocean, with no food or water. He was finally rescued 40 days later, severely dehydrated and emaciated, but alive. After his ordeal at sea, Michael took a factory job in a chemical plant. It was a high-paying job, but, also a dangerous one. He was working the night shift, monitoring gauges in a control room, when a high-pressure valve in another part of the plant failed. A silent, odorless, and highly toxic gas began to leak, just filling the massive facility. The automated alarms failed to trigger due to a system malfunction. Workers in other sections of the plant began to collapse without knowing why. Michael, however, had a bad cold that day. His sinuses were completely blocked, and he couldn't smell a thing, but he did have a raging headache, which he just attributed to his cold. He decided to step outside for some fresh air to clear his head. As soon as he opened the door and breathed the clean air, his headache vanished. He thought it was strange. He looked back inside and saw one of his co-workers collapse. Realizing something was terribly wrong, he sounded the manual evacuation alarm, saving the remaining workers. His common cold had made him immune to the gas's early effects and, saved his life. Michael was visiting a friend in a modern skyscraper. They said their goodbyes and Michael stepped into the elevator on the 40th floor. He pushed the button for the ground floor, the doors closed, and the elevator began its descent. A few floors down, there was a loud bang, and the elevator car shuddered to a halt. Then, with a horrifying lurch, it began to fall. The main elevator cables had snapped. The car was in a free fall, accelerating down the elevator shaft. Most people would panic, but Michael's life had been a training course in disaster. He remembered reading somewhere that lying flat on your back could distribute the force of impact. He immediately dropped to the floor of the elevator and spread his limbs out. The emergency brakes eventually engaged with a violent screech, slowing the car just enough before it crashed into the buffer springs at the bottom of the shaft. The impact was still immense, and it shattered every bone in his legs, but his spine and vital organs were protected. He survived a 30-story elevator plunge. While recovering from his shattered legs, Michael got a desk job at a lumber mill, thinking it would be safe. He was tasked with data entry in an office overlooking the main factory floor. One day, a forklift carrying a massive stack of logs drove past below his office window. The driver didn't see a patch of oil on the floor, and the forklift skidded, tipping its heavy load over. The massive logs rolled toward the main support beam holding up Michael's office. The logs smashed into the support beam and the entire office, a small structure built onto the side of the main building, tore away from the wall. It tilted and then fell 20 feet to the factory floor below, landing upside down with a deafening crash. Rescue workers rushed over, expecting the worst. They used a crane to lift the destroyed office. Inside, they found Michael hanging upside down, still strapped into his office chair, which had gotten wedged into the door frame, creating a small pocket of space. He had a severe concussion and a dislocated shoulder, but the chair had saved him from being crushed. Michael's final and perhaps most terrifying brush with death came when he was in his late 60s. He was simply doing his grocery shopping at a local supermarket. Suddenly, a group of armed robbers stormed the store, firing guns into the air and ordering everyone to the ground. It was a violent, chaotic hostage situation. The robbers were agitated and unpredictable. Michael lay on the floor with 24 other terrified shoppers and employees. For hours they lay there as police surrounded the building. One of the robbers became increasingly paranoid and grabbed Michael, pulling him to his feet to use as a human shield. He dragged Michael toward the front of the store, holding a gun to his head. As they neared the glass doors, a police sniper, who had a clear shot, took it. The bullet flew past Michael's head, missing him by less than an inch, and struck the robber, who collapsed instantly. In the ensuing chaos, the rest of the robbers were apprehended. Michael was the man who was closest to the danger, the one with a gun to his head, and he was the only one who walked away without a scratch. After surviving 25 insane, unbelievable disasters, from atomic bombs to shark attacks, Michael Bell's luck took one final incredible turn. In his later years, he bought a lottery ticket on a whim, and of course he won. Not just a few bucks, but a staggering $38 million jackpot. The man who had survived everything finally had his cosmic reward. He lived out the rest of his days in quiet comfort, a life he had been chasing since he was a boy. In 2012, at the age of 93, Michael Bell finally passed away, not from some spectacular accident, but peacefully from stomach cancer. It seems the only thing his luck couldn't beat was biology. But through all the stories of impossible survival and financial fortune, the shadow of his sister Sarah always remains. She was the tragic counterpoint to his miraculous life, a reminder that luck is a zero-sum game. Her death, at just 8 years old during that 6th atomic strike, was a wound that never healed for Michael. His entire life was a testament to the pain of being the one left behind, the survivor who carried the weight of loss through every fire, flood, and explosion. Her memory makes his story not just amazing, but deeply human and heartbreaking. Michael Bell's life is more than just a collection of crazy stories. It's a profound symbol of resilience, a testament to the human will to live, and maybe, just maybe, proof that miracles can happen. His legacy isn't the money he won or even the disasters he survived. It's the sheer, awe-inspiring fact that one person could endure so much and still find a way to keep going. His story serves as a powerful reminder that even in the face of unimaginable chaos, there can be hope. Thank you for watching.